Have you ever gotten really emotionally triggered by something and found yourself immediately telling a story? And this isn't just any story. This story is a very familiar narrative, one that keeps playing out again and again. What I've observed after talking to thousands of people in emotional distress or in those reactive loops is that as humans, instinctively, when something happens, there's a circumstance or event, we immediately assign meaning. We tell a story about whatever is happening. Now, this is automatic for so many of us. And as I've spoken to so many people, I always listen very closely, not only to the language that they're using, but also to the narrative that they are telling. Because these stories are ruining their lives. Let me explain. When we get emotionally activated or something is coming up and we're in one of those emotional loops, and then we instinctively tell this old narrative, we are unintentionally reinforcing it because our body is responding in real time to all the facets of our being. So what we're thinking, what we're feeling, what we're expressing, kind of how our body and our nervous system are responding to whatever is happening. And for so many of us, when we get emotionally activated, that is when something, an unhealed wound within us, or something that's been unresolved gets activated. It's like when you have water glasses and you ping on one and then the resonant water glasses elsewhere start pinging back. That's what happens when something happens to us in our lives. And if an emotional wound or an old energy that's been unresolved gets triggered within us, it's going to ping those old ones and bring them up, because our triggers are opportunities for great healing. That's my belief, and that is what I have experienced and observed in not only my personal healing, but also helping so many other people move through emotional distress and come back to regulation. And so when we get emotionally activated, if we treat it as a gift, we can heal so much more quickly. But one of the first and most primary skills that most people overlook is the skill of awareness. And it's not just being aware of ourselves in the moment or moment to moment or day to day, but it's also being able to observe ourselves from a place of neutrality. So we aren't coming and observing and judging and labeling like our brains love to do, like criticizing, judging, labeling. We're wanting to be an observer who is very curious and very neutral, if not kind, with whatever they're noticing or seeing that's coming up. Because the thing about being in an emotional loop is that so many people want to talk about the details, the situation, what specifically was happening. But what they're missing is actually what's underneath all that. Because details aside, it's actually really what is happening within you. So what thoughts are you thinking? What story are you telling? How's your body reacting? Those are the things that we want to be aware of and notice. We want to pull our attention and focus off the actual circumstances in our lives and come inward and look, what is happening within me? And this is a skill that has to be practiced and cultivated over time, because this is the very first and most important foundational skill so that we can begin to really get to know ourselves and understand ourselves. Now, of course, we also have to be able to regulate, and that's another very important foundational skill. But before we can even do that and to come out of the reactivity and be able to create that space between stimulus and response, we have to be able to observe ourselves. And it's especially important to be able to see ourselves in those moments when we are really emotionally, a lot of stuff is coming up for us, or we're feeling triggered or activated in some way. We're having a lot of intense or kind of a surge in an emotion. Those are the most important moments where we can really start to see ourselves and notice. And that brings us back to the story. Whenever you're in that moment, when you're having a big emotional reaction, if you can create that pause and step back to that observer stance and ask yourself, what story am I telling? Now, it's not that we're wanting to tell a really in detail narrative, but we want the overarching, what's the story? Whether that's nothing ever works out for me, or people always let me down, or I'm always the problem. That's the story. And it's depending on whatever's going on for you. You just have to start noticing, what's the story I'm telling? Because we are such repetitive creatures, and our brains love to be on autopilot so much that what tends to happen, and you'll start noticing this if you're paying attention and keeping track, is that there's like a top 10 greatest hits of your stories. Now, the number's not important here, but it's kind of like there is those core stories that just keep repeating over and over and over again in your life. And those stories are our subconscious programming. Those are the things that were usually downloaded within us when we were children. And so because they are a part of our subconscious programming, that means below our conscious awareness. And so in order to become conscious of these patterns, of these ways of thinking and believing, we have to start to become aware of ourselves. And no one can do this work for you, unfortunately. There are people who can help you pinpoint certain stories or things that we're repeating, but you actually have to do the work of slowing down and observing yourself, becoming very aware of what's happening within you in order to be able to pull that subconscious information, pull those stories, pull those thoughts, pull those beliefs, and be able to see them. So that then we can move into the next stages or the other foundational skills of healing, where then we start trying to maybe shift some things or rewrite some things and have a more empowered belief system and story that we're telling in any given moment. Now, if you'd like a place to start with this, I am going to link one of my videos down below where I talked about how we can do a 3-point check-in to be able to figure out whether we're regulated or not, and to pause and take inventory quickly of where we are mentally, where we are emotionally, and where we are physically. So if you're interested in that, you can go check that out. But our first foundational skill is awareness. And next week, we will be talking about the second foundational skill. You won't want to miss it. Take care of yourselves, everybody. I'll catch you on the next one.